My aunt re-gifts some ugly pots to my parents on their wedding. So my dad devises a 10-year revenge plan. A little setup. My dad is one of 9 children to my grandparents. When the oldest sister, my auntie, let's call her Margaret, got married, one of the gifts she received was 4 very poorly made clay pots from one of her friends who wasn't super close to the family. These pots were all very different to each other and didn't match at all. I assume they came out of a first-timers pottery class or something. Anyway, fast forward 15 years and my parents are getting married. Margaret shows up at the wedding, as does everyone else. The ceremony and reception pass with no dramas and everyone goes home. The following week, my parents begin to sort through all their wedding gifts. They unwrap Margaret's to find a very old, worn-looking cardboard box with the old tape still underneath the new tape put on there by Margaret to hold the lid closed. Dad opens the box to see the 4 pots that had been given to Margaret 15 years prior. My parents knew this was a gift to Margaret originally because at the bottom of the box was a card of congratulations on your wedding, addressed to Margaret. She hadn't even bothered to take the pots out of the box when she was gifted them or checked the condition when rewrapping them. This thoroughly annoyed my dad. We think she gifted them genuinely. Even with her sense of humor, she was just a bit stingy sometimes. Then, my father's anger turned to determination as he started to develop a plan that would stretch almost a decade. With Christmas fast approaching, my dad rewrapped the pots in the same box with the same wedding card addressed to Margaret, essentially in the same condition he had received it in. He then wrote another card addressed to another of his siblings explaining his plan. He gave the present to the youngest of his siblings. The newer card explained that she was to hold on to the pots until the next Christmas, making sure to unwrap it and make sure everyone could see the pots in one way or another. The card then explained to leave the wedding card in the box and to not let anyone see it. My auntie would then hold on to the box, pots and card until next Christmas. She would then gift them and my dad's note to the next sibling above her in age, in this case my uncle. This cycle would repeat another 8 times until it reached the oldest sibling, Margaret. In my dad's letter, it instructed the last sibling before Margaret to not give her the letter written by him regarding the plan. 9 years after giving the gift away, my dad and all his siblings watched as she pulled out the pots that she had been seen being passed around from sister to sister for the last decade. She then noticed the note still in the box. She opened it and a Category 4.2 earthquake was registered as her jaw hit the floor. Now, most people would expect her to erupt in rage, but Australians have some of the best senses of humor on the planet. The family all had a good chuckle about it and moved on to Christmas lunch. The pots are now separated, one each going to my dad, Margaret, my grandparents, and the last being the trophy of the annual cricket game. It was sadly destroyed by a rogue ball in that same yearly tournament and is now only half a trophy. Hope you enjoyed. Okay, this is absolutely hilarious and turned from a pretty thoughtless and cheapskate gift into a great, long-running joke the family could all laugh at. That's a win for the family, right? Margaret is marginally the jerk here. Also arguably your dad when he was initially being angry about the wedding gift. Honestly, who cares if people don't hit a certain value in those things in the narrator's mind? But I think, honestly, the end here turns the whole series of events into a great set of memories. The fact that the whole family utilizes these items and probably gets a chuckle every time they look at them is 100% a positive result here. Also, the fact that you have half of a shattered piece of amateur pottery being passed around for whoever wins the yearly cricket game is just so distinctly Australian for a reason that I can't put my finger on. Great story, great family. The fact that one of you is a bit of a cheapskate isn't going to tarnish that fact. Keep on keeping on, you legends. Entitled parent tries to coach own daughter on how to treat retail staff rudely. So, this is a story about my own mother. Yep, she's the entitled parent in the title. So I'm a young lady with a rather large chest. I'm an E in my country, and I think that's a double D in the USA. Because of that, if I'm leaving the house, bras are mandatory to avoid accidental crushing accidents whenever I spin around too fast. About 2 years ago, when I was 19, I bought the most comfortable bra that I'd ever bought before. It was soft and silky, had nice, I think, straps, 5 back clamps, etc. I only had that bra for about 3 months until the underwire broke free and started to stab me. It happened at university, and when I got home that afternoon, I told my mother about it. I like to think I take good care of my bras, as usually I only get rid of them because I outgrew them or the straps became too loose beyond adjustment, but not because they break. The bra was only $60 and only 3 months old, so maybe it was just defective. Bras should not really only last 3 months, so I was going to go to the store and ask for an exchange or refund. The only thing was, I didn't have a receipt. Like I said, I take good care of my bras, so I didn't think to keep the receipt. I was also not a part of their brand's customer rewards service, as I only brought products there once for a sale, so they couldn't look up a name or membership or profile with them. I told this to my mum and wondered what I should do. "Well, that's not okay," my mother started. "You know what to do, right? Let them know that it's illegal for them to sell faulty products. Do not leave the store until you have that refunded. If the cashier says they can't refund it without a receipt, then ask to speak to the manager. They'll sort you out." In case it wasn't obvious, my mother has never worked in retail herself, but I, at this point in time, had been for about 4 to 5 years. I know the annoyance of the phrase, "Can I speak to your manager?" and was not going to enforce that on an innocent civilian. "No, I'm not going to do that," I replied. "That would just be rude." "Well, I could do it for you then. I'll just say, my daughter bought a defective bra which is illegal to sell, and we demand a refund because according to the law—" "No, we're not going to do that either. It's not the cashier's fault that one bra happened to be defective, so I'm not going to treat them as if it is. I'll just go in, explain my situation, and ask what their policy is about refunds without a receipt." So you know what? Ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what I did. I walked in, found the cashier, and explained that my $60 bra broke in 3 months, and I didn't have the receipt in the friendliest and kindest way possible. Because I know how much working retail sucks. The lady said that she did need some proof of purchase and asked me what day I bought it on. She was so kind and lovely as well. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and I looked at the transactions 3 months ago and found the date of the exact $60 purchase. I gave her the date, she typed that into her computer, and found a transaction on that date. For $60, in the exact bra, color, and size as mine. She printed that off, scanned it, and refunded the original purchase, all while a different attendant found the same bra in my size off the shelf, and bought all 3 color options to me in case I wanted the replacement in a different color. I chose the original color, thanked both ladies for their amazing help, and walked out of the store with my new and non-defective bra. When I told my mum about it, she went on some rant about how she was surprised they didn't need the manager's approval for the transaction. "Mum, the manager isn't some all-knowing, magical higher being. See, Mum? You can have a social interaction without belittling retail staff, acting like a know-it-all, and God forbid, demanding to speak to the manager. Just be kind." Honestly, on behalf of all people working in that store, thank you for standing as a shield between the regular workers and the Karens. Honestly, going straight to the manager without even trying with a regular staff member sounds like something straight out of the Karen Horror Story Handbook. God forbid we go into any sort of situation not behaving like a complete entitled pompous aggressor. I guess the narrator shouldn't be too harsh on your mum. It sounds like she only acted as a potential jerk, and you swiftly avoided her becoming one, at least in this specific instance. Thank you also for detailing the mechanisms needed to keep the bras of chestier women secured. I wasn't aware that bras that needed 5 clasps were a thing, but it actually makes absolute sense when you think about it. Some people just carry larger loads than the rest of us and need more support to keep it all in place. This makes it sound like I wear bras. I don't. Today we learned something both about the contraptions keeping people's chests from taking out everyone on the bus, and about the unseen heroes who stand as a barrier between the service worker and the dreaded Karens and Kens of the world. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Alright, screw your laundry then. As a bit of background, I live in an apartment building with a backyard. My landlady has set up drying lines in one part of the backyard that we're free to use. I live on the ground floor, and my apartment has direct access to the backyard. I work from home, so I'm almost always here every day. Now, I have a perfect view of the lines and can see if there are any clothes hanging on them. Sometimes a fellow resident will hang their clothes and either forget about them or be somewhere else when it starts raining. So what I usually do is bring them in and leave them in a little waiting room we have in the building where they can easily find it. It's happened enough times that everyone already knows I'm the one doing it. A few weeks ago, one of the residents came to me and complained about how I handled their clothes. She said I laid them down on a dirty surface or rumpled them too much. They were just washed, of course there'll be creases. She might also have insinuated that some pieces were missing. I don't cross-dress, nor do I have a fascination for other people's clothes, by the way. She ends her complaints with, "I'd rather you not touch my clothes in any way." That's the first time someone complained to me about rescuing their freshly laundered clothes. Didn't think too much about it, until today. A few hours ago, I see her hanging her clothes to dry. Fast forward to now, I'm looking at them getting drenched from this awesome rain. Well, she did tell me not to touch them. I'm currently working in front of the window so I can see when she finally takes them down. Maybe I'll give her a wave. Oh, as an update, she finally took them some time ago and asked me why I didn't bring them in. I reminded her of our past conversation and she called me a childish F-word. I do feel a bit sorry as some of the clothes were apparently her work uniforms and I know she'll be working early tomorrow. I'm only a bit sorry though. I've just received a text from our landlady asking why this lady is annoyed at me. The resident made a complaint. Ha! I told the landlady everything, and she also called me a fricker. In a positive sense though. Said I shouldn't worry about it as it doesn't violate any of the building's rules. Yeah, it kinda sounded like she explicitly asked you to take the course of action that you took. So, alright, she was complaining before, maybe one or two pieces got dirty? Would you rather have to do the entire load again because they all got drenched? And what's with trying to take some sort of action against someone who simply refrained from providing a free service that he'd done for you before? This is one of those situations where I'd desperately like to understand what the jerk in question thought the result would be from their spiteful action. At that point, you have to ask yourself what you're really angry about. I do have to admit that in similar situations, I'd have been hesitant about handling strangers' underwear, especially women's, but I guess when push came to shove and I was the only thing standing between a lady and her wet undies, I'd try and do the right thing. Oh, be quiet, you immense bunch of children. If you can find a different way to say that, I'd like to hear it. Maybe let me know in the comments. This is my favorite, "I'm married to the owner" story. Okay, so I work at a large chain pizza place, but in a smaller town that no one really knows exists. Only carry out and delivery. Now, for this story to make sense, the store has a landlord, but also my boss is considered the owner of this store, even though it's a chain restaurant. So two different people that kind of own this building. So this Karen comes in one morning while I'm the manager on shift, and the only person there is my delivery driver. Driver is 20 years old, male, and I'm a 24-year-old female, but I honestly look very young. This was like last month or so, and we aren't allowed to have any customers come indoors. We walk to their car because of COVID. So I very politely inform Karen that she can't come indoors and I'll be more than happy to assist her at her car. She says, "That won't be necessary. I'm allowed in here." I say, "No, Mom, we aren't allowed to have any customers indoors because of COVID. We could get temporarily shut down if so. My husband's the owner. Just take my order." Now, the landlord isn't married. He comes around a lot and he's very young, like my age. I think he inherited all the properties that he owns, and my boss is married to the absolute sweetest person I've ever known, and they both live an hour away in a different state. Karen is like mid-40s and definitely not the sweet woman I've known for years. I say, "I'm very sorry, but you're not married to the owner. I'm just going to need you to step outside of the store and I'd be more than happy to assist you outside." "Fricking excuse me? I can get you fired, you dumb little B-word." "Okay, I hope you do, but I still need you to step outside of the store so I can take your order." Now, to clarify for our listeners, I do have the right to refuse service, but with the pandemic, I really try hard not to deny someone food and know she has kids at home. There's only 4 food places open in this tiny town due to COVID, so someone has to incredibly push my buttons for refusal of service. I've only done it twice since the pandemic, and both times it was this nasty old dude who liked to tell me that I have a nice butt. "No, you can leave, sir." Anyway, Karen says, "I won't take this mistreatment. I'll call the owner and get you fired." Okay, while you do that, I'm going to call the actual owner so he can tell you to step outside of the store. Karen grabs her phone and starts calling someone. I call my boss and explain the situation. While I'm talking, Karen interrupts me to say, "Yeah, he says you're fired. You're too young to really be working here anyway. I don't know why he hired a child to work, but you don't work here anymore." My boss overhears this and starts laughing and asks to be put on speakerphone. "Ma'am, I'm the owner of the store and I would never allow my wife, who's sitting next to me, to come into the store during the pandemic. It's a violation of current health laws and we have the right to call authorities if necessary. Please step outside the door." Karen was screeching that it was the other owner, the landlord, but she calls him by the wrong name. My boss started laughing again because the landlord has no control over the actual store, he just owns the building and we pay him rent. The landlord is also currently working right outside on the roof. So at this point I say, "Oh, I didn't know the landlord got married. I'll go congratulate him. Come on, let's go." So I walk outside and Karen is following me, calling me a child, the B word repeatedly, among other things. So I shout out, "Hey, landlord's name, do you mind coming down for a second?" Karen looks absolutely mortified at this point. It was beautiful. She definitely effed up and she knew it. But no, I'm going to keep rolling with it. At this point, the landlord came down from the ladder, confused as all heck. "Hello, landlord. Your new wife here says you've just fired me and that she's allowed indoors. Now, I didn't know you got married. I'm so happy for you." He said, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to get the frick off my property. I have no authority to fire anyone, and you're already being a B-word." The landlord puts up with absolutely nothing and is really protective over me. Karen mumbles something I still can't understand and then says, "I can't fricking believe a teenager is doing this crap to me," and turns to go to her car. The landlord says, "She's actually older than me and has far more patience than I do. Don't ever come back into my fricking property." Now Karen just calls and asks for delivery, which I happily do. Landlord and I still laugh about it all the time. I sadly didn't get to do the whole, "Oh, you'd like to speak to the manager? That's me" thing, but I have plenty of those stories anyway. Okay, so not only are you not a jerk, you're also far more saintly and restrained about punishing this woman for her behavior than I would have been. Very considerate of you to consider her and her kids during the ongoing pandemic you were having at the time. Honestly, speaking in 2024, I would have smugly taken her off the list of people who can order. But then again, now she's been so definitively called out, maybe she'll behave better. That's a very satisfying conclusion to a classic Karen behaving like an absolute sack of crap and lying to get what she wants. Also, why can't people just order from outside during this world crisis and do their best to help out like everyone else? We've only really started calling people Karens in the last 10 years or so, right? Just in time for the major world pandemic where their selfishness and need to be treated differently from anyone else could come into play at the worst possible moment for everyone. Ah well, good victory, pizza manager. The time I made my ex mad by making friends with the woman he cheated on me with. In my early 20s, I lived with my boyfriend at the time. I was gullible and believed every word that came out of his mouth. I believed him when he said he worked late hours and came back at 4 a.m. and made up excuses to keep me from meeting his friends and family and let him isolate me and hide me away. Well, one day his grandmother passed away from natural causes. This was pre-COVID, and he was devastated, so I asked if he wanted company or to be left alone to grieve. He, of course, wanted to go alone, so I let him. I got a call from someone who knew both me and my ex, informing me that he did in fact take his girlfriend to the funeral, but that person wasn't me. She had been introduced to his family, taken on date after date, and he had played dad to her 1-year-old. My heart sunk right to my feet that day, and so did hers once she found out about me. My friend got us in contact and we talked for hours. We laughed, cried, and in the end decided to dump that man and be friends. He absolutely hated it. We became extremely close after that. I took her to her 21st and drunk sat her after she got sick all over me. And we took each other on a date and even to a concert that her family had got tickets for. To this day, I have her in my phone as the wife, even though we're both married to wonderful men. Oh, and my ex? He ended up attacking me and is spending serious prison time for it. It's been a wild ride. Holy crap. Well done to you and this lady for actually not going the route of being enemies with each other when you were both wronged by the awful man you used to be involved with. I know at least one pair of friends who were bonded over an awful ex. It was a rough time, but they both found it very vindicating and bonding to meet the one other person who'd been treated as absolutely awfully by the scumbag they'd used to date. This is how we deal with people who cheat on us. You don't blame the outside party even if they knew about you. The partner who knowingly does this is the main catalyst of your aching soul, and they did what they did despite claiming to care about you. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.